He walked into the coffee shop with a Rolex on his wrist and $1 billion empire behind his name. But when the waitress poured him coffee and whispered 7 words, the man who'd never cried in 30 years broke down in front of strangers. What did she say? Read on till the last word, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, twist-filled stories that move your soul and make you question everything you thought you knew. Asterisk. The rain fell softly against the tinted windows of the black Bentley as it pulled up to the sidewalk of a modest, overlooked corner coffee shop in the heart of the city where no billionaire ever wandered unless they were lost or broken. And in this case, David Lawrence was both lost in his thoughts and broken in ways no one could see. The grief of a hidden life shadowed beneath his custom-tailored suit and silent stares. Inside the cafe, the lights flickered slightly as the door chimed open, and he stepped in. His polished Italian shoes clicking against the cracked tiles that hadn't seen a renovation in over a decade. And behind the counter, a young girl with faded jeans, a too-thin apron, and eyes that carried the weariness of someone thrice her age glanced up, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and gave him a smile that wasn't fake, just fragile. Like someone still trying to find reasons to smile at all. He ordered black coffee. No sugar, no cream, and she nodded, scribbling it down even though she didn't need to. Her hands trembling slightly as she turned to prepare it, and something in her posture tugged at a long-forgotten chord inside him. A memory he hadn't faced in years but that now crept up his spine like cold mist. As she placed the cup in front of him, he noticed the bruises barely hidden beneath her sleeves. The way her eyes darted toward the back door every few seconds, so expecting a monster to walk in at any moment, and curiosity compelled him to stay longer than the coffee required, to ask her name. Emma, she said. Just Emma. And when he asked if she liked working there, she smiled again, this time hollow, and replied, "It pays just enough to survive, but not enough to leave." And he nodded, not pressing, because pain recognizes pain. But the cafe was nearly empty, and the rain refused to stop, and they ended up talking for minutes that turned into hours, till she said something that made him drop his spoon. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Someone who abandoned me when I was 5," and he froze, heart thudding in his chest like a sledgehammer on glass. And he asked, his voice shaky, "What do you mean?" And she looked him straight in the eyes and said, "My mother told me my father was rich, too busy for us. So he left. She died of cancer when I was 14, and I've been on my own since." And the world spun for David Lawrence, the billionaire, the ruthless dealmaker, the man who once left a struggling woman and child behind because he was afraid. Too young, too ambitious, too selfish to embrace fatherhood. A decision buried under guilt and stock options. And now, staring at him, was the daughter he never knew. The girl he'd dreamed about in rare moments of sleeplessness. And the realization hit like thunderclap. He whispered, "Emma. Emma Thompson." And she narrowed her eyes, slowly nodding, her fingers gripping the counter. And then he did the unthinkable. He reached into his wallet, took out a faded photograph of a woman and a toddler, and placed it gently on the counter. And the moment her eyes locked on it, she dropped the cup she was holding, shards splashing coffee across the floor like tears. "You know, this can't be," she stammered, and he simply said, "I'm your father." And before she could react, he knelt on the floor and began to weep. Silent and violent sobs of a man whose empire could not protect him from regret. And she stood there frozen, watching this stranger break apart in front of her. And though she wanted to scream, to run, something kept her feet planted on guard, and confusion wrestled in her eyes. But there was also something else, something tender she tried to suppress. And after a long silence, she finally said, "Why now?" And he answered with all the honesty he had left, "Because I saw your eyes. And I knew I'd seen them before, and I couldn't run anymore." And she looked away, wiping tears from her face. Because her entire life had been built on the foundation that she was unwanted, discarded, and now that narrative was cracking, and cracks let light in. She didn't forgive him, not immediately, but she didn't ask him to leave either. And he returned the next day and the next, sometimes sitting in silence, sometimes telling her stories about her mother whom he once loved but feared committing to, and slowly, painfully. A fragile connection began to form between two broken halves of the same past until one day. Emma didn't show up for her shift, and panic bloomed in David's chest like wildfire. He called the café, her number, nothing, and after hours of searching, found her in a rundown hospital, bruised and beaten. Unconscious after her ex-boyfriend, the same man who used to wait behind the café, had assaulted her after she told him she was leaving with her father's help. And David stood there, hand trembling, watching her breathe through machines. And something inside him shifted. He canceled a billion-dollar merger, liquidated a personal property portfolio, and when Emma awoke days later, she found herself in a pristine recovery center with therapists, doctors, and a man who no longer wore suits but sat beside her in plain clothes, holding her hand like a father should. Years ago, she didn't speak for days, but when she finally did, she whispered, "Why do you care now?" And he answered, "Because I should have cared then. I can't change the past, only earn the right to be in your future." And tears welled in her eyes, not just from pain, but from the unfamiliar feeling of being valued. And from that moment on, she allowed him into her life, not easily, not fully, but enough to start again. Months passed, seasons changed, and Emma left the cafe forever, pursuing her dream of studying art, supported not by a billionaire's guilt, but a father's redemption. And every painting she made told a story of pain, of forgiveness, of unexpected reunions. And every time someone asked about her most powerful work, the one with a coffee cup shattered on the floor, and a man on his knees, she'd smile and say, "That was the day everything changed." And as for David, he never walked into another boardroom the same way again, never made another decision without first remembering the weight of a life he almost lost. And every Sunday, he met Emma at the park bench near the old cafe, now closed and turned into a small community art center named Emma's Place, and they talked. Sometimes laughed, sometimes cried, but always together, always healing, proving that even the deepest regrets could become bridges if you were brave enough to face them. And so, the millionaire who once had everything but love found it in the last place he expected, a dusty cafe and a girl with his eyes, who said 7 words that changed him forever. "You remind me of my father's ghost." It's asterisk if this story moved. You hit that subscribe button for more unforgettable, twist-filled tales that strike your heart and leave you breathless. Asterisk.